Listen closely, my friends. My name is Elijah Hayes, but folks call me Eli. I'm 71 years old, and today marks exactly 1 year since I discovered my own son was ready to throw me out on the street, all for a damn walk-in closet. Do you know what hurts the most in this world? It's not the punches thrown by your enemies, those you expect. It's the ones dealt by the people you love the most, the ones that shatter your soul and make you wonder if living this long was even worth it. I'm sitting here now in my condo on 14th Street in Midtown. I have this old photograph of my Eleanor in my hands. May God rest her soul. And I swear by the Holy Spirit that my hands still shake when I remember that night. It was exactly 1 year ago, on a Wednesday afternoon, when I stepped out of the bathroom and heard voices coming from Devon's bedroom. My son, my only son. Tell me, didn't I have the right to trust him? For 40 years, I drove buses for Continental Star Lines, from Atlanta all the way up to Charlotte, waking up at 5 in the morning, putting up with disorderly passengers, helping elderly women with their grocery bags, loading up heavy packages for traveling merchants. 40 years, my friends, saving dollar after dollar, buying only the cheapest things, wearing the same shirt until it was threadbare, all so my family could have a better life. When my Eleanor passed away 12 years ago, taken slowly by that cursed cancer, I sold our humble little house in the sweet Auburn district. It was small, but we were happy there. I pooled all my savings, down to the last penny I'd stashed under the mattress, and I bought that big house in Collier Heights, a beautiful home with a backyard where Eleanor had dreamed of planting her roses. And you know what I did? I put it in Devon's name, so the young family could have their own home. What a fool I was, I told my neighbors. But listen carefully, because here comes the important part. Mr. Theodore Thompson, the attorney who helped me with the paperwork, a wise man with many years on him, told me, Eli, you need to include a life estate clause. In this world, there are many ungrateful children. I laughed. Mr. Thompson, I replied, you don't know my Devon. He would never hurt me. The old attorney shook his head and wrote that clause in anyway. Thank God he did. For 3 years, I lived in that house, giving Devon my full retirement check every single month, $3,800. All my money went to the house expenses. I got by on the bare minimum. The cheapest soap from the drugstore, used clothes my sister, Aunt Connie, gave me, and whatever medication I could afford when I had enough to take them every day, like the doctor said. But I was content. You know why? Because I was living with my family. Because I watched my grandkids, Darius and Kiana, grow up. Because every night I could tell them stories about their grandmother Eleanor. I had the master bedroom, the one on the first floor with windows facing the garden. It was the biggest, nicest room in the house, the one I chose when I bought the property, because from there I could see the roses I had planted in Eleanor's memory. In that room, I kept all my memories. Our wooden marriage bed we bought when we first married, my framed bus driver's uniform on the wall, my collection of Sam Cooke records that I played on Sunday mornings, and the photos from our vacations in Myrtle Beach, when Devon was a boy. But things started to change a year ago, when Tiffany's mother, Ms. Beverly Sterling, had a fight with her youngest daughter, and was left without a place to stay. Tiffany, my daughter-in-law, started making strange comments. At first, they were small things. Dad, could you close your door, please? That old man smell travels all through the house. Or when I was watching my shows on TV. Your volume is too high again. My head hurts with your old movies. I kept quiet. My friends, I kept quiet because I thought it was nerves. That Tiffany was worried about her mother. My Eleanor always told me, Eli, you're too good-natured. But daughters-in-law need time to adjust. So I swallowed my pride and carried on. But that Wednesday night, exactly 1 year ago, everything changed. I came out of the bathroom, walked down the hall toward my bedroom, and heard Tiffany's voice from Devon's room. The door was slightly ajar, and her words hit me, clear as a church bell. Your father can go live with your Aunt Connie. We'll put my mama in his room. She needs the care. Besides, the house is ours, isn't it? You're the owner now. I stood paralyzed in the hallway, my legs shaking. Devon didn't answer immediately. I heard the creak of the bed as he shifted. Then his voice, lower, but it struck me like a knife. Well, technically, yes, the deed is in my name. But, Dad? What Dad? Tiffany interrupted. He's old. He won't care where he lives. But my mama needs attention, and I need space. Don't you care about your wife more than your father? That's when I felt the world crash down on me. My hands started shaking so violently, I had to lean against the wall. 40 years working like a beast. 12 years raising my son alone after Eleanor left. 3 years giving him my entire pension. And now they were talking about me as if I were a piece of old furniture that was in the way. I walked into my bedroom and closed the door softly so they wouldn't know I had listened. I sat on the edge of the bed, that bed where I had slept with my Eleanor for 25 years, where we had planned Devon's future, where she had made me promise that I would always look out for our son. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, remembering every sacrifice I had made. I thought of the freezing early mornings climbing onto the bus, the rude passengers who yelled at me, the cold sandwiches I carried in a plastic bag to save money, and how my back ached after driving for 12 hours straight. But I never complained, because every single dollar was for my family's future. I remembered my Eleanor in the hospital, thin and jaundiced, with 2 beeves in her arms, whispering in a broken voice, Eli, the most important thing is that our Devon has his own house, and we're gone. Promise me you'll help him. And I promised her. My friends, I gave her my word as she was dying in my arms. I bought that house with every penny I had earned in my life, with the money from the sale of our humble home, with a lifetime of hard-earned savings. And now Tiffany was talking about kicking me out to bring in her mother, as if I were a troublesome tenant, as if my sacrifice meant nothing. When morning came, I got up at 6, as always. I showered, put on a clean shirt, and ate breakfast alone in the kitchen. Devon had already left for the car dealership. Tiffany slept late, as usual. The children were getting ready for school. Everything seemed normal, as if the night before hadn't changed a thing. But I knew something had broken forever. I looked at my bedroom with different eyes. The walls Tiffany was already measuring in her head for her closet, the space where she planned to put her mother's dressers, the garden where my Eleanor's roses would be ripped up to make room for God knows what kind of foolishness. And it was right there, my friends, standing in the garden, watering the red roses that Eleanor and I had planted 10 years ago, that I made the most important decision of my life. I wasn't going to allow them to treat me like trash. I wasn't going to let them turn my wife's memory into a walk-in closet. I had given enough. I had sacrificed enough. If they wanted me out of the house that I bought with my own 2 hands, I would leave. But I was going to take the house with me. You know what, friends? This didn't happen overnight. The humiliations came little by little, like water dripping until it eventually drills a hole through stone. If you'll permit me, I'll pour you some homemade sweet tea here in my new kitchen. And I'll tell you what those 3 years were like. The years that turned me from a respected father into an obstacle that had to be removed. At first, when we moved into the Collier Heights house, everything seemed perfect. Tiffany treated me kindly. She called me Mr. Eli with respect. She even asked if I needed anything from the grocery store when she went shopping. The children ran all over the house shouting, "Grandpa!" and I felt like the luckiest man alive. Devin would come home from the dealership and tell me about his sales. I gave him advice on dealing with difficult customers because in 40 years as a driver, I had seen it all. But things started to change when Tiffany realized the house was hers. Not legally, of course, because the deed was in Devin's name, but in her head, she was already the queen of the house. The first comments were subtle, like they were meant to be accidental. "Dad, could you close your bedroom door when you change? The kids run up and down the hall." I obeyed without a word, thinking she had a point, that the grandkids shouldn't have to see their grandfather in his underwear. Then came the complaints about my schedule. "Dad, you wake up too early." The sound of the shower wakes up the kids. I had been an early riser my whole life, ever since I started working at 15, but I tried to shower later, even if it meant being late for my doctor's appointments, or missing the bus to see my sister Connie on Sundays. Then it was my television. I had a small TV in my room, an older model I had bought when Eleanor was still alive. In the afternoons, I liked to watch my shows, the classic black westerns, the sports, the news. But Tiffany started to complain. "The volume is too high. My head hurts. Can't you use headphones?" Headphones to watch TV in my own bedroom? Can you imagine? But I bought them, some cheap ones that hurt my ears, because I didn't want to cause trouble. Then came the comments about my smell. "Dad, I think your room smells musty. Could you keep the door closed? The smell travels all through the house." I showered every day, used deodorant, and washed my clothes. But I started spraying air freshener in my room, opening the windows even when it was cold, and washing twice a day, because I thought maybe I didn't realize I smelled due to my age. Tiffany also started complaining about my medicine in the bathroom. "Dad, your pills take up too much space in the cabinet. The kids might get confused and take something." I put my medication in a little box in my room, even though it was less convenient to have to go all the way there every time I needed to take something for my blood pressure or my aching back. And the expenses, my friends, the expenses hurt the most. On the first day of every month, religiously, I handed Devin my full retirement check. $3,800. I had earned over 40 years of work, 40 years of getting up before dawn, of enduring traffic, of carrying luggage, of being kind to rude passengers. I gave him all that money without keeping a single dollar. "It's for the house expenses, Dad," Devin would tell me. "The electricity, the water, the gas, the food, everything is so expensive." And of course, I believed him. But later, I found out Tiffany was buying $150 shoes, that Devin had bought a brand name shirt that cost what I spent on clothes in 6 months, and that they were taking the kids to fancy restaurants on weekends while I ate refried beans and stale tortillas. For my personal expenses, I had to ask my sister Connie for money. Imagine the shame. A 68-year-old man borrowing from his sister just to buy soap. Connie, I'd ask, can you lend me $20? I ran out of deodorant. She gave me the money without asking, but I saw the pity in her eyes. Once, she told me, Eli, why don't you keep some of your check? You have expenses too. But I answered, no, Connie. Family comes first. Devin has a wife and children to support. Do you know what was the most painful moment in those 3 years? It was a Sunday, about 6 months ago. I had decided to make them Eleanor's secret jambalaya recipe, the one she guarded like a treasure that she'd learned from her grandmother. Since Saturday, I'd been preparing the andouille sausage, the okra, the file powder, and mixing all the spices. I spent $50 of my emergency money buying the ingredients: Tabasco, bay leaves, shrimp, everything needed. Sunday morning, I got up early, cooked the chicken, and prepared the sauce with the love Eleanor had taught me. Jambalaya takes patience and affection, she used to say. Every ingredient has to feel like you love it. I spent 3 hours in the kitchen stirring the pot, tasting, adjusting the salt, adding a little more spice. When I served the jambalaya, my grandkids, Darius and Kiana, were overjoyed. It smells delicious, Grandpa, shouted Kiana. Like the kind Grandma used to make, said Darius, who was only 5 when Eleanor died, but remembered the smell. I felt proud. I thought I had finally done something the whole family would enjoy. But when Tiffany took the first bite, she twisted her face as if she'd bitten into a lemon. It's too greasy, she said loudly, so everyone could hear. This heavy food is bad for your stomach. The children will get sick. And she pushed her plate to the center of the table without finishing it. Devin, who had been eating normally up until then, also put down his fork. Dad, he said to me with that condescending voice he had started using, don't you think at your age you should be eating lighter things? Jambalaya has too much fat, too much spice. It's not good for your stomach or ours. Tools. Then he added something that pierced me like a knife. Also, Dad, haven't you considered that maybe it would be better for you to live with people your own age? Your Aunt Connie is lonely. You two could keep each other company. It's too noisy here with the kids. They need space to study, to play. Tiffany chimed in to finish me off. Yes, Mr. Eli, Darius is getting big. He needs a bigger bedroom, and yours is the largest in the house with its own bathroom on the main floor. It would be perfect for him. I sat there silently, fork in hand, watching my grandkids eagerly continue to eat the jambalaya while their parents scorned it. I got up from the table without saying a word. I went to my bedroom and locked myself in. I didn't come out again that day, not even for dinner. You know what hurt me the most about all of this? It wasn't just the scorn. It was the ingratitude. 40 years, my friends. 40 years of waking up at 5 in the morning to get on my bus. 40 years driving in the rain, the sun, the hail, putting up with drunks who threw up on the seats, helping women with heavy bundles, stopping in dangerous places when someone needed to get off in an emergency. I remember once on the highway to Charlotte, my bus broke down in the middle of the night. I had 30 passengers inside, including 2 elderly folks who were going to see their children. I got out in the dark with my tools and spent 2 hours fixing the engine in the rain so those people wouldn't be stranded. I got home with a fever, soaked, my hands cut up, but happy because I had done my job. And now my own son was telling me I was a burden, that I should go live somewhere else because my room was too big for me. The room I had chosen when I bought the house, where I had put the bed, where I slept with Eleanor, where I hung my framed driver's uniform as a memorial to my years of work. But it wasn't always like this, and that's what hurts the most to remember. There was a time Many years ago, when Devin was small, when he would run to hug me when I got home from work. "Dad! Daddy!" he'd scream from the moment he heard the engine of my old car. Eleanor would come out wiping her hands on her apron. She'd give me a kiss, and Devin would tell me about his day at school while I took off my tired work boots. On Sundays, the three of us would go to Grant Park. Devin would play on the swings while Eleanor and I sat on a bench planning our future. "When we own our own house," she'd say, "I want a big backyard to plant roses. And Devin will have his own room with a big window to let in the sun." When we finally bought the little house in the sweet Auburn district, Devin was 12 years old. It was small, just 2 bedrooms, but it was ours. The day we moved in, Devin ran all over the house, shouting, "Mom! Dad! I have my own room, my own closet." He looked out his bedroom window and yelled to us, "I can see all the way to Mr. Jones's corner store from here." Eleanor planted red geraniums in pots because we didn't have a backyard, but she always said, "One day we'll have roses, Eli." Red roses like my mama had. And when Devin graduated from high school, right there in the living room of our little house, we held a party with slow-cooked greens that Eleanor had made since dawn. "Dad," Devin told me that day, hugging me tight, "when I'm grown and have money, I'm going to buy you a beautiful house with a big backyard so Mom can have all the roses she wants." I believed him. Of course, I believed him. He was my son, my only son, the boy who had grown up watching me sacrifice everything for the family. But that boy who promised me a house with a backyard became the man who wanted to kick me out of the house I bought myself. And Tiffany, who at first called me Mr. Eli with affection, now spoke to me as if I were a bothersome tenant who didn't pay rent. In the last few months before that terrible night when I heard their conversation, the humiliations became more direct. Tiffany no longer bothered to hide her contempt. If I coughed in the morning, she'd say, "That awful cough again? You should see a doctor, whore." If I played music, she'd sigh loudly and slam her bedroom door shut. If I cooked something, she'd open all the windows to air out the smell. Once, about 2 months ago, I was watering Eleanor's roses in the garden when I overheard Tiffany talking on the phone with her friend Keisha. "I can't take this old man anymore," she was saying. "The whole house smells like medicine. He showers too early and wakes everyone up. He watches his old TV shows with the volume blasting, and the worst part is he occupies the best room in the house. I could turn that into an incredible walk-in closet." That afternoon, I sat on my bed surrounded by Eleanor's pictures, and for the first time in a long time, I cried. I cried for the ingratitude for the lost years, for believing that a father's love was enough to guarantee a son's respect. I cried for Eleanor, who had died thinking our Devin would always take care of me. But I also cried, my friends, for my own foolishness, because I had allowed them to treat me like that, because I had believed that giving everything was the same as love, because I had confused sacrifice with dignity. My Eleanor always told me, "Eli, you're too good. One day, that's going to get you into trouble." She was right, as always. The moment that changed everything came exactly 10 days ago, my friends. I get up from my favorite chair here and walk over to this desk where I keep a folder with all my important papers. Here it is. Look, the deed to this condo. My new life. But before I got here, I had to go through the most painful and most revealing moment of these last few years. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and it was hot. One of those sticky October heats in Georgia that makes you sweat even in the shade. I had gone out to the backyard of the house, to the garden, where I kept the red roses I planted in Eleanor's memory. Every afternoon, religiously, I watered them with an old green plastic watering can I'd bought at the local market. It was my moment of peace, when I spoke to Eleanor in silence, when I told her how my day had gone, when I asked her for the strength to keep going. I was crouched down next to the rose bushes, feeling the damp soil cling to my old shoes, when I heard Tiffany's phone ringing inside the house. The window was open because of the heat, and her voice carried clearly into the garden. At first, I didn't pay attention. I thought it was one of those calls from stores offering credit cards. But when I heard her say, "Keisha," I knew it was her friend, that gossipy woman who sometimes came over for coffee and always looked at me like I was a piece of furniture. "Oh, Keisha," Tiffany was saying, with that voice she used when she wanted to play the victim. "I just can't take this situation anymore. It's been 3 years of tolerating this old man in my house." "My house," she said. "My house." As if I wasn't the one who had paid for it with 40 years of work. I stopped watering. I stood motionless with the watering can in my hand, trying to listen better without making a sound. Tiffany continued talking. "He wakes up super early and makes noise. The whole house smells like medicine. He watches his old shows with the volume up so loud. And the worst part, Keisha, the worst part is that he has the best bedroom. Can you imagine? The master suite, the biggest one, with its own bathroom on the main floor. I could have the walk-in closet of my dreams in there." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. The watering can was trembling in my hands, but I kept listening. I needed to hear everything. "But I've already got it figured out," Tiffany continued. And in her voice there was a cold certainty that chilled my blood. "I've started feeding Devin ideas. I tell him his dad would be better off with people his age, that the kids need space here, that the house is too small for so many people." Devin is kind of slow about these things, but he's already starting to make comments. Keisha must have asked her something because Tiffany gave that fake laugh I knew so well. "No, girl, there won't be a problem. The deed to the house is in Devin's name. We're the owners. And the old man has nowhere to go but to his sister Connie's house. He already served his purpose. He gave us the house. Now he can go bother someone else." In that moment, I dropped the watering can. The sound of the plastic hitting the ground and the water spilling onto the dirt made Tiffany stop talking for a moment. I stayed there, watching the water spread over the ground, soaking my shoes, watering the roses in a way Eleanor would never have approved of. But I couldn't move. My legs felt like stone. Tiffany continued talking, much quieter now. "Hold on a second, Keisha. I think I heard something in the backyard." After a moment, she added, "No, it must have been the neighbor's cat. I was telling you, very soon that room is going to be my closet. Remember those cabinets we saw at Macy's? I'm going to have them custom made. It's going to look amazing, with floor-to-ceiling mirrors and all my clothes organized by color." That was it, my friends. In that exact moment, something broke inside me. It wasn't like in the movies. There was no dramatic music or lightning strikes. It was something silent, but definitive. Like a thread that has been holding up too much weight for too long, finally snapping. I picked up the watering can from the ground, filled it again with the hose, and finished watering Eleanor's roses without making a sound. But inside, something had changed forever. While I watered, I could still hear Tiffany's voice. "Besides, Keisha, he's so old now. Why does he need such a big room? If he has a little bed at his sister's place, he's all set, and we can finally live like decent people." When I finished with the plants, I stood there a few minutes longer, looking at the red roses Eleanor loved so much. "Forgive me, my love," I said in a soft voice. I think I finally understood what you meant when you told me I was too good-natured. Because my Eleanor, God rest her soul, always warned me, Eli, you have a noble heart, but in this world, some people mistake kindness for foolishness. Don't let anyone take advantage of you. That night, I couldn't eat at dinner. I locked myself in my bedroom. That bedroom Tiffany had already decided to turn into her closet. And I started thinking. For the first time in 3 years, instead of feeling sadness over the humiliations, I felt something different. Rage. A clean, justified rage that came from deep within me. I sat on my bed, took out the shoebox where I kept my most cherished photographs, and began looking at them, one by one. Eleanor on our wedding day, in that simple white dress her mother had sewn. Eleanor holding newborn Devon in the hospital. Eleanor and I, the day we bought the little house in the sweet Auburn district. Eleanor planting the first geraniums in our first little garden. And the last photo I took of her 2 months before she died, sitting in the living room chair, frail, but smiling with Devon next to her. Eleanor, I said to her picture, what would you do if you were me? Tell me, my love, how do I get out of this with dignity? And I swear by the Holy Ghost that I heard her voice, clear as if she were sitting right next to me on the bed. Eli, you've given enough. You've been humiliated enough. Now, defend what is yours and defend your dignity. I didn't raise you to be a doormat for anyone, not even your own son. The following days were strange, my friends. On the outside, I was still the same old Eli. I woke up early, ate breakfast alone in the kitchen, said hello to Tiffany and Devon when I saw them, played with my grandkids when they got home from school. But inside, I was thinking, planning, remembering things I had forgotten. I remembered Mr. Theodore Thompson, the attorney who had helped me when I bought the house, an older man with a white mustache and thick glasses, who I liked from day one. When I explained that I wanted to put the house in Devon's name, he had asked me, "Are you sure, Mr. Eli? It's a very noble thing you're doing, but allow me to suggest something. Let's include a life estate clause, just in case." I had laughed that day. Mr. Thompson, you don't know my Devon. He's a good boy, a hard worker. He would never hurt me. That clause isn't necessary. But Mr. Thompson had insisted. Mr. Eli, in my 40 years as an attorney, I've seen everything. I've seen good sons turn into devils when property is involved. Believe me, it's better to be safe than sorry. Now, 3 years later, I understood that man's wisdom. The life estate clause meant that as long as I lived, I had the legal right to stay in that house. And if that right was violated, I could demand the complete return of the property. Just in case there are ungrateful children, Mr. Thompson had told me with a sad smile. How right the old man was. During those days of reflection, I also thought a lot about my sister, Aunt Connie. Tiffany mentioned her name as if she were the perfect solution. He can go live with his sister. But Connie was 73 years old. She lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in South DeKalb County on a smaller pension than mine. How could I show up and cause her expenses, take away her peace, and become a burden on my older sister when I had my own resources? No, my friends. For the first time in a long time, I began to think clearly. I had worked 40 years to have a dignified old age. I had bought that house with my money. I had put it in Devon's name out of love. But that didn't mean I had to endure humiliations. Eleanor hadn't raised me to be a whining old man who accepts any abuse just to avoid bothering people. The definitive moment arrived 5 days ago. It was Friday afternoon. I had gone to the grocery store to buy a few things with the money Connie had lent me. When I came back, I saw Tiffany standing in the doorway of my bedroom with a tape measure in her hand. She had her cell phone in the other, and on the screen I caught a glimpse of a furniture store's website. She was measuring the walls of my room, my friends, measuring my bedroom as if it were already hers, calculating where her cabinets, her mirrors, her foolishness would go. She didn't see me arrive because she was concentrated, writing numbers in a little notebook and talking to herself. The large mirror will look perfect here, and the drawers for the linens over here. "What are you doing, Tiffany?" I asked in a calm voice, without shouting, without getting upset. She turned around with not an ounce of shame, as if it were the most natural thing in the world to be measuring her father-in-law's bedroom to turn it into a closet. "I'm planning some changes in the house, Mr. Eli," she told me, with that fake smile she had perfected over 3 years. "There will be renovations soon." "What kind of renovations?" I asked her, though I already knew the answer. Tiffany looked me straight in the eye, and what I saw there finally convinced me of what I had to do. There was no respect, no affection, not even pity. In her eyes was the calculating coldness of someone who had already made a decision and was only waiting for the right moment to execute it. "Necessary changes," she said. "This house needs to adapt better to the needs of the family living here." "The family living here," she said, as if I wasn't a part of that family, as if I were a tenant whose time was up. That night, I went to bed early, but not to sleep. I stayed awake until very late, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the house, Tiffany watching TV in the living room, Devin coming home late from the dealership, the children doing homework in their rooms. My family, but a family that no longer wanted me. At 3 in the morning, I made the decision. I got up, turned on the lamp on my nightstand, and took a yellowed paper out of my wallet that I had kept for 10 years, Mr. Thompson's business card. The next day, I was going to look for him. It was time for Elijah Hayes to stop being the good old man who puts up with everything and become the man who defends what is his. Eleanor was right, as always. The moment had come to defend my dignity. So Monday morning, I woke up at 6, as I had every morning for 40 years of driving a bus. But this day was different, my friends. I had made a decision that was going to change my life forever. I got out of bed slowly, with that strange calm you feel when you know you're about to do something important, something definitive. I showered carefully. I shaved slowly in front of the bathroom mirror that Tiffany criticized so much for being full of my medicines. I combed my gray hair back with the hair tonic I'd used since I was young, the one Eleanor always said made me look distinguished. Then I went to my closet and took out my best suit, that black suit I had worn only 3 times in my life. The day of my wedding, the day of Eleanor's funeral, and now. I put it on carefully. I knotted the navy blue tie that Eleanor had given me for our 20th anniversary. I put on the black shoes that I had shined the night before. When I saw myself in the full-length mirror in my room, I didn't recognize the humiliated old man of the last 3 years. There stood Elijah Hayes, the man who had worked 40 years without missing a single day. The man who had raised a son alone after being widowed. The man who had bought that house with the sweat of his brow. Elijah Hayes, I said to my reflection, you will not allow them to wipe their shoes on you. It's over. And I walked out of my bedroom with my head held high, Mr. Thompson's yellowed business card in my hand, and a determination I hadn't felt in years. It was 7:30 in the morning. The house was quiet. Tiffany was sleeping late, as usual. Devin had already left for the dealership. The children were eating breakfast and watching cartoons on TV. I gave Darius and Kiana a kiss. I told them I loved them very much, and I left the house without eating breakfast. My stomach was knotted with nerves, but I also had a mental clarity I hadn't felt in a long time. The MARTA train ride from the West End to the downtown station gave me time to think. For 40 years, I had made that same trip to go to work, but in the opposite direction, from downtown toward the north, where the bus terminal was. How many early mornings? How many passengers? How many stories I had heard over those years? And now I was heading downtown, not to work, but to recover my dignity. At 8:30 sharp, I knocked on the glass door of Mr. Theodore Thompson's office. The secretary, a very kind, older woman, told me Mr. Thompson didn't have an appointment until 10, but when I explained that it was urgent, she went to consult him. 5 minutes later, the attorney came out in a person. Mr. Thompson had aged in those 10 years, but he was still the same elegant man I remembered. His hair was completely white now. He had more wrinkles around his eyes, but his gaze was still intelligent and kind. When he saw me, his eyes widened in surprise, and then he smiled. "Mr. Eli, how many years has it been? 10? 12? He shook my hand with that warmth I remembered. "Come in. Come into my office." "What brings you here? I hope it's not bad news." And we sat in his office, which smelled of old books and freshly brewed coffee. The same diplomas I remembered were on the walls, and pictures of his grandchildren were on his desk. Mr. Thompson poured me coffee in a porcelain cup and sat across from me with the patience of good lawyers, the ones who really listen to their clients. "Mr. Thompson," I said, "I've come about the house I put in my son Devin's name 10 years ago. Do you remember that deed?" Mr. Thompson frowned thoughtfully and then stood up to go to a huge filing cabinet behind his desk. "Hayes, Elijah," he murmured as he searched through the folders. "Here it is. Property transfer with a life estate clause." He returned to his desk with a thick folder and opened it in front of me. "Of course, I remember. You insisted the clause wasn't necessary, but I told you that in this world there are many ungrateful children." I finished the sentence for him. "You were right, Mr. Thompson. Completely right." Mr. Thompson took off his glasses, cleaned them slowly, and looked at me with the expression doctors wear when they know what disease you have before you finish explaining the symptoms. "Tell me what happened, Mr. Eli, and don't hold anything back, because I need to know all the details." For the next hour, I told him the whole story. I told him about the 3 years of humiliations, about Tiffany's comments about my smell and my schedule, about how they had made me feel like a burden in the house I had paid for myself. I told him about the moment I overheard the conversation where they planned to kick me out to bring in Tiffany's mother, about the phone call where she talked about turning my bedroom into her dream closet, about how Tiffany had been measuring my room with a tape measure. Mr. Thompson listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally in a legal pad. When I finished my story, he was silent for a few minutes, reviewing the documents in the folder. "Mr. Eli," he finally said, "the life estate clause is very clear. As long as you live, you have the absolute right to remain on that property. Any attempt to evict you constitutes a serious breach of the deed of gift. And when there is a breach, the law provides 2 remedies. You can demand the forced fulfillment of the contract, or you can request the reversal of the transfer." "Reversal means they can give me the house back?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Exactly. If a judge determines that your son and daughter-in-law have violated the conditions under which the gift was made, they can order the property to revert to your original name. It's as if the transfer never existed. Mr. Thompson leaned forward in his chair. Do you have proof of what you're telling me? I explained that I had started recording conversations with a small device my sister Connie had bought me, one of those little recorders that students use. Over the last few days, I had recorded several comments from Tiffany, including a conversation where she told her mother over the phone, "In a few weeks, you'll have your room, Ma. The old man is moving to his sister's house, and that's a done deal." Mr. Thompson smiled for the first time in the conversation. "Mr. Eli, you did well to document all of this. Recordings are valid evidence when they are made in the recorder's own home. We are going to sue for breach of contract, and we are going to ask for the total reversal of the transfer." The next 15 days were the strangest of my life, my friends. On the outside, I was still the same grandfather. I played with my grandkids, helped in the kitchen, kept Eleanor's roses watered. But inside, I had a secret that gave me strength, a hope I hadn't felt in a long time. Mr. Thompson had filed the lawsuit in Fulton County Family Court, and now all we had to do was wait for the hearing date. Tiffany continued making her poisonous comments, but they no longer hurt me. When she would say, "Mr. Eli, have you talked to your sister about the move yet?" I would answer calmly, "Don't worry, Tiffany, everything will be settled soon." She interpreted my words as resignation, but I knew she was in for the surprise of her life. Devin, for his part, had started avoiding me. He came home late from work, ate quickly, and locked himself in his room with Tiffany. But sometimes, I caught him looking at me with a strange expression, as if he suspected something was changing. One night, after dinner, he approached me while I was watching the news. "Dad," he said, "are you okay? You seem different lately. Like, I don't know, calmer?" I wanted to tell him the truth in that moment. I wanted to explain that his wife had turned me into a stranger, in my own home, that he had allowed me to be humiliated for 3 years. But I kept quiet. There would be time to talk in court. "I'm fine, son," I told him. "I'm just thinking about a few things, some changes I might have to make." Devin nodded, but I saw in his eyes that he was not at ease. Maybe deep down, he knew that what they were planning was wrong. The day of the hearing arrived on a rainy Thursday in November. I got up earlier than usual. I put on my black suit, my blue tie, and my shiny shoes again. I ate breakfast alone in the kitchen, watching the raindrops fall on Eleanor's roses through the window. "Today, my love," I said in a soft voice, "your Eli is going to get his dignity back." The family court was downtown, in an old but impressive building. Mr. Thompson was waiting for me at the entrance, also dressed in his best suit, carrying a leather briefcase full of documents. "Are you ready, Mr. Eli?" he asked. "More ready than ever," I replied. Devin and Tiffany arrived 15 minutes later, accompanied by a young lawyer who looked nervous. Tiffany was wearing an elegant black dress and high heels, as if she were going to an important business meeting. Devin was wearing an expensive shirt and a tie I didn't recognize. They looked sure of themselves, confident, as if they had already won the case. When they saw me sitting next to Mr. Thompson, Tiffany greeted me with a fake smile. "Good morning, Mr. Eli. I didn't know you had a lawyer too." Devin didn't greet me. He just looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. The judge was a woman around 50, serious but not unkind, with gold glasses and a black robe that gave her great authority. Her name was Judge Evans, and from the moment she started speaking, I knew she was a fair person. "This is a case of a lawsuit for breach of a deed of gift," she announced. "Mr. Elijah Hayes alleges that his son, Devin Hayes, and his son's wife, Tiffany Sterling, have violated the conditions under which a property was gifted 10 years ago. Mr. Thompson, present your arguments. Mr. Thompson stood up and spoke for 20 minutes, explaining with elegant but clear words everything that had happened to me. He presented the recordings I had made, read the life estate clause, and explained how Tiffany had planned to turn my bedroom into a closet after kicking me out of the house. When the recordings played in the courtroom, Tiffany turned pale. Her own voice filled the room. "I can't take this old man in my house anymore. In a few weeks, you'll have your room, Ma. The old man is moving to his sister's house. And that's a done deal." Devin looked at the floor, his hands sweating. Then it was the turn of Devin and Tiffany's lawyer to speak. He was a young man, perhaps recently graduated, who stammered a lot and couldn't explain how they were going to justify the recordings. "Your Honor," he said, "my client is the legal owner of the property. The deed of gift is in his name. He has the right to decide who lives on his property." Judge Evans interrupted him in a firm voice. "Young man, did you read the full deed of gift before coming here? Because it seems you are unaware of the life estate clause." The lawyer turned red and began frantically looking through his papers. Then the judge asked Devin directly, "Mr. Hayes, do you confirm that you discussed with your wife the possibility of asking your father to leave the house?" Devin went white as a sheet and began to babble. "Your Honor, it was just an idea. It was never serious." But Tiffany couldn't control herself. She jumped to her feet and shouted, "That's our house. The deed is in Devin's name. We have the right to decide who lives there." Her own lawyer tried to make her sit down, but she kept shouting, "We've been supporting that old man for 3 years. It's time for him to leave." Judge Evans banged her gavel on the desk, and silence fell completely in the room. "Madam," she said in an icy voice, "sit down immediately and control your emotions, or I will have you removed from my courtroom." Tiffany sat down, but continued shaking with rage. "After hearing the arguments and reviewing the evidence," the judge continued, "this court determines that there has indeed been a serious breach of the conditions of the deed of gift. Mr. Elijah Hayes has 2 options. He can demand the forced fulfillment of his right to the life estate, or he can request the complete reversal of the transfer." My heart was beating so hard, I thought everyone in the courtroom would hear it. The moment had come to make the most important decision of my life. I stood up slowly, straightened my tie, and looked Devin directly in the eyes for the first time in months. "Your Honor," I said in a clear, strong voice, "I choose the second option. I request the complete return of the property. I want my house back." Devin jumped to his feet. "Dad, no! We can fix this. Tiffany won't bother you anymore." But it was too late. The judge banged her gavel again and sentenced. "The reversal is granted. The property returns to the estate of Mr. Elijah Hayes. The current occupants have 15 days to vacate." The silence that followed was deafening. Tiffany was crying. Devin looked at me as if he didn't know me. And I, for the first time in 3 years, felt completely free. 3 months have passed since then, my friends. Here I am, sitting in my condo in Midtown, finishing this story while looking at this photograph where I'm hugging my grandkids, Darius and Kiana. 3 months since Judge Evans banged her gavel and returned what was mine. 3 months since Devin and Tiffany had to pack their things and look for a new place to live. Do you know what I did when I got my house back? The first thing I did was sell it. Yes, you heard right. After everything I had fought for, after winning in court, I sold it because I understood something important. That house was no longer my home. It had become a battleground. A place full of humiliations and bad memories. I couldn't stay there, looking at every corner where Tiffany had planned to erase my existence. I sold it for $750,000. A good price, the real estate agents told me, because the area had become expensive over the years. With $300,000, I bought this condo near Grant Park. Small, but it's mine, with 2 bedrooms and a kitchen that smells like fresh coffee every morning. From my window, I see the park where I now play dominoes with my friends, where children run and shout, like Darius and Kiana used to when they were younger. The other $450,000 I put in the bank in a special account that Mr. Thompson helped me open. It's for my grandchildren, for when they turn 25. $225,000 for Darius. $225,000 for Kiana, for when they are adults and can understand the difference between true love and manipulation, between respect and convenience. I didn't leave Devin and Tiffany a single cent, just a letter I wrote that last night in the Collier Heights house before they came to get their things. I put it on the kitchen table, the table where we had eaten breakfast so many times as of Emily. Devin and Tiffany. I hope Tiffany's dream closet was worth losing a house and losing a father. The money from the sale is saved for Darius and Kiana, for when they are old enough to appreciate the meaning of sacrifice and respect. May God bless you. Eli. Do you know what was the hardest part of all this? It wasn't the trial. It wasn't selling the house. It wasn't moving in alone at 71. The hardest part was seeing Devin's face when he realized he had lost everything by following his wife. When he realized that by indulging Tiffany and her foolishness, he had lost not only the house, but also his father. The day they came for their things, Devin showed up with a moving truck and 2 young men to help him load. Tiffany didn't even speak to me. She walked through the house like a ghost, packing her expensive dresses, her high-heeled shoes, all those things she had bought with the money I gave them every month. But Devin did approach me. "Dad," he said in a broken voice, "I'm sorry. I never wanted it to come to this." I looked him in the eyes, those eyes that looked so much like my Eleanor's, and I said, "Devin, I gave you everything I had, a house, money, respect, love, and you chose contempt over gratitude. There is nothing to forgive, son, because it wasn't a mistake. It was a decision." He was silent for a moment, then added, "What if Tiffany changes? What if things get better?" I shook my head. "Devin, Tiffany won't change, because Tiffany doesn't believe what she did was wrong. And you won't change either, because you allowed me to be treated like trash in the house I bought with 40 years of work. Now they live in East Point, in a small apartment that costs them $2,500 a month. Tiffany can no longer boast that she owns a house. She can no longer invite her friends over for coffee in her big living room. She can no longer talk about her dream closet. The 3 of them live cramped in 650 square feet. Devin, Tiffany, the children, and Tiffany's mother, Ms. Beverly Sterling, who finally got her room, but in a place she doesn't like at all. Devin's co-workers at the dealership heard the whole story. Atlanta is small, my friends, and news travels fast. Now when he gets to work, he hears murmurs. There goes the one who kicked his father out for a walk-in closet. His boss, who knew my reputation as an honest driver because we were from the same union, told him, "Devin, your father was a respected man. I don't understand how you could do that to him." Tiffany blames Devin. Devin blames Tiffany. They can be heard arguing at night, according to my sister, Connie, who lives near where they rent now. "This is your fault," Tiffany shouts at him. Your father was stubborn, and you didn't know how to handle him. And Devin replies, it was your idea to get rid of him. I never wanted to go that far. But you know what the most beautiful part of this whole story is? My new life, my friends. For the first time in years, I feel free, completely free. I get up when I want. I eat what I feel like. I watch my shows with the volume as high as I please. I listen to Sam Cooke on Sunday mornings without anyone complaining. Every day I walk to Grant Park, which is 3 blocks from here. There, I met Mr. Robert Jackson, a former mechanic my age, and Mr. Samuel O'Neill, who worked 30 years at the oil refinery. The 3 of us are widowers. The 3 of us have stories to tell. The 3 of us play dominoes from 10 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. Eli, they told me when I told them my story, you did the right thing. A man has to defend himself, no matter his age. Mr. Jackson added, I had to throw my oldest son out of my house for being a thief. It hurt, but it was necessary. Sometimes true love means setting boundaries. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I go to the Greater Zion Baptist Church to help with the soup kitchen for the homeless. I serve soup, hand out cornbread, and listen to the stories of men who lost everything and are trying to get back on their feet. Many are younger than me, but some are grandfathers like me, who ended up on the street because their families abandoned them. Mr. Eli, Pastor Miller tells me, you were lucky. You were able to defend yourself in time. And he's right. How many old people didn't have a Mr. Thompson, who didn't have the foresight to include a clause, who just kept quiet until it was too late? But what excites me the most, what fills my heart the most, are my grandchildren. Darius and Kiana come to see me on Saturday afternoons without Devin and Tiffany knowing. They sneak away under any pretext. We're going to the store. We're going to the park. And they come running all the way here. They knock on my door with that urgency children have when they want something with all their heart. Grandpa, they shout when I open the door, and I hug them, squeezing them close. I feel their little hearts beating fast from the run. I smell their clean hair, and I know everything I went through was worth it for these moments. Darius, who is 12 now, and very serious for his age, asked me a few weeks ago, Grandpa, why do my parents say you did something bad? Mom says you sued them for no reason. I sat down with him in my living room, poured him a glass of homemade sweet tea, and explained it to him in words he could understand. Darius, I said, your parents thought they could treat me like an old piece of furniture that was no longer useful. They wanted to kick me out of the house I bought so your mom could have a bigger closet. I only reminded them that old people have dignity too. We also deserve respect. I didn't do anything wrong, my boy. I defended what was mine. Kiana, who is 9, but very smart, said, Grandpa, I heard Mom telling Grandma that you were mean because you didn't want to go live with Aunt Connie. I explained, my love, would you leave your bedroom to go sleep in the yard just because someone else wanted your room? I wouldn't either. Besides, Aunt Connie is getting old, and she didn't have to take on the burden of me. I tell them stories about their grandmother Eleanor. I teach them how to make the jambalaya they like so much. I explain what life was like when I drove the bus. They listen to me with those bright eyes children have when someone is paying them genuine, undistracted attention. When you turn 25, I tell them, you will receive the money I saved for you, but by then you'll be adults. You'll understand the value of work. You'll know the difference between what is earned and what is just given. Darius asked me, is it a lot of money, Grandpa? And I answer, it's enough for you to start your adult life without debt, for you to go to college, for you to have options. Last Sunday, Early in the morning, I was sitting on my favorite bench in Grant Park, giving little pieces of cornbread to the pigeons, when Darius came running up with a bouquet of red carnations in his hand. He was out of breath, his cheeks flushed from the run. "Grandpa," he said, handing me the flowers, "these are from me and Kiana. It's not your birthday or anything, but we wanted to get you something because we love you very much." I took the carnations that smelled like the market and Sunday morning, and I felt my eyes fill with tears. I hugged him tight. I breathed in the smell of his hair, and in that moment I knew I had done the right thing. Not out of revenge, not out of rage, but out of dignity. To teach my grandchildren that love doesn't mean putting up with anything, that respect is not begged for, and that older people are not disposable. "Darius," I whispered, "tell Kiana that Grandpa is very happy, that I am very proud of both of you." Then I looked up at the sky, at that Atlanta blue my Eleanor loved so much, and I said to her in silence, "I did it, my love. I defended my dignity, just like you taught me, just like you would have wanted." My friends, if you are listening to me, if someone out there is going through something similar, let me tell you something important. Love for your children should never become the humiliation of their parents. Sometimes the best gift we can give our children is to teach them that every person, regardless of age, has limits that cannot be crossed. I did not act out of malice. I acted out of dignity. I didn't want to hurt them. I wanted to educate them. Sometimes true love hurts, but it is necessary. Because if I had continued to tolerate it, if I had quietly gone to my sister Connie's house, what would I have taught Darius and Kiana? That it's okay to disrespect your grandparents? That old people are worthless? That you can trample on someone who loves you unconditionally? No, my friends. I prefer to be remembered as the grandfather who defended himself, who fought for his dignity, who proved that old age is not a synonym for weakness. I prefer to live alone, with my head held high, than to be accompanied, but humiliated. This is my story. The story of Elijah Hayes, 71 years old, widower, former bus driver, father of an ungrateful son, and grandfather of 2 wonderful grandchildren, who will one day understand why their grandpa had to fight for his place in the world. This story is for you, my friends, so you know that it is never too late to defend yourself. It is never too late to say, enough. May God bless you, and remember, dignity is not given away or sold. It is defended. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.